Hello friends, welcome back to Turkish series stars. I'm glad you're here, because today's story is as raw and unforgettable as it gets. Before we dive into it, don't forget to subscribe and hit like, it truly helps this community grow. Now, take a breath, because what I'm about to tell you shook even the people who thought they'd seen everything in the world of Turkish showbiz. The most intense romance of recent memory, between Baris and Elsen has shattered in a moment that witnesses are still struggling to describe without trembling. Sources close to the actors say Elsen ended it during a private evening that was supposed to be about mending fences. For months, their love was the story everyone followed. They didn't need grand declarations, eyes, gestures, and quiet smiles did the talking. But passion comes with a shadow, jealousy, misread signs, the kind of doubt that grows silently. Their relationship unfolded under lights and lenses. Fans cheered for them, shipped them, imagined wedding bells. Even after the storm of leaked messages, those screenshots that trended at lightning speed, hope stayed alive. There was a belief that if anyone could beat the noise, it would be Baris and Elsen. No one, absolutely no one, imagined it would end with the sound of metal striking wood. The final scene took place at a dinner table surrounded by close friends who wanted to help. They chose a quiet place, dim lighting, just enough privacy for honest words. It was meant to be a bridge back to each other. But honesty has a price. Witnesses say Baris admitted to a connection on set, a friendship he kept tucked away, one he said was harmless but knew would not feel harmless at all. That admission changed everything. Elsen didn't throw a fit. She didn't raise her voice. She stood up with a stillness that made every second feel heavier. She slid off the ring that had become part of her hand, looked at it once, and then let it fly onto the table. It clattered, rolled, and settled between half-finished plates as she turned and walked out without a backward glance. No one moved to stop her. No one dared. People say Baris watched the door close and knew, with absolute clarity, that the story they had written together had reached its last line. Hours later, when the city was quieter, Elsen went to Instagram and posted words that cut deeper than any rumor ever could. She wrote about how love doesn't always fade, sometimes it simply stops being enough to survive in the darkness of doubt. She wrote that you cannot build a life on suspicion because suspicion does not attack loudly, it eats slowly, piece by piece, until the roof caves in over your head. Strength, she said, is not staying where lies sleep next to you. A ring doesn't prove anything. Truth does. It was not bitter, not petty. It was the kind of message that feels like standing in cold rain and realizing you were meant to be clean all along. The post went viral within minutes. Millions of likes, comments from women and men both, friends and strangers. Some said she broke their heart. Many said she gave them courage. Meanwhile, Baris went quiet. He skipped interviews, cancelled appearances, told his team he needed time. Friends describe him as devastated, not in that dramatic way people like to imagine, but in the quiet, heavy way that hangs on your shoulders when you know you hurt someone you actually loved. One person close to him said he didn't follow her out the door because he knew he had no right. Any word would have been a justification, a plea, a half-measure that would only make it messier. He watched her leave and understood that silence was the only honest thing left to offer. Days later, he posted a black-and-white photo of the ring resting on a wooden surface. The caption was a single sentence about mistakes you cannot take back and how loneliness is sometimes the exact price they demand. There was nothing else in the frame. No faces. No explanations. Just a promise turned relic. That ring wasn't just pretty jewelry. It had a story, like everything they touched together. During a long shoot, when the nights were longer than the days and they lived on coffee and takeout, Baris gave her the ring as a vow carved in metal. On the inside were their initials and a word, sonses, that meant what lovers always try to say but words rarely hold for long. Eternal. It was a promise to keep choosing each other when they were tired and bruised by fame. People who saw it up close said it fit her like it had always been meant for that finger. The night it hit the table, it became something else. A symbol of what couldn't survive the small injuries that pile up, the ones no one sees until one day it's all too obvious. Elsen has stepped back from the spotlight since. You won't see her doing press, striking poses on red carpets, or smiling through questions about her private life. Her team confirmed she would pull away from promotional events for a while, not because she wanted to punish herself, but because she wanted to heal in a way that didn't become public property. Her representative said it simply: she needs time, and distance is part of that medicine. She hasn't disappeared, though. She's been with her family, finding quiet routines that don't require applause, morning tea, long walks, the kind of laughter that doesn't need a camera to count as real. People forget that even the most photographed faces sometimes need to live a life with no lens aimed at it. This isn't just a breakup, and that's not an exaggeration. It feels like a chapter closing in the larger story of Turkish television. Two people who climbed together, whose chemistry was a secret language fans learned to read, admitted they couldn't defeat the creeping fog of insecurity. Love, success, tears, triumphs. None of it could carry them across the bridge that doubt burned behind their backs. And yet, in the very moment of ending, something else began. By letting the ring fall, by choosing silence over a scene, Elsen stepped into an entirely different role, one that many women saw themselves in. It was not about pride. It was about choosing a life that does not ask you to accept less than what your heart knows to be true. The ring did not only fall. It freed her. What happened after she walked away could be written as flickers of small images. A taxi waiting outside the restaurant, its meter already ticking. The long coat that swallowed her frame and the dark glasses that hid tired eyes that had probably run out of tears. The quick check of her phone, no new messages that mattered. A small suitcase by her side that looked like it had been packed with urgency, as if she had known deep down how the night might end. She moved like someone who had made a decision the day before and only needed to live through the moment to make it real. The driver asked, "Where to?" and she gave a neighborhood instead of a headline. Later, someone said she was on the first flight out in the morning. Others insist she stayed in the city, just went to a place where nobody expects anything from anyone. Either way, at dawn she stepped into the blur of streets that belong to everyone and no one, and if you saw her, you would have described her the same way witnesses did, calm, exhausted, beautiful in that unmistakable way that comes from having survived your own courage. People will ask, what about the messages? What about the so-called friendship on set? Here is what matters. There is a line between what should be spoken and what should be learned in silence. The admission that night was not theatrical. It was a nod to reality, an attempt to be honest too late. The messages, whatever they did or did not say, had already done their damage. The doubt had already moved in, set up furniture, redecorated the corners of every conversation, hummed in the background when phones lit up at midnight. If you have ever lived with doubt like that, you know it is not one thing. It is 1,000. It is the pause before an answer. It is the smile that looks a hair too practiced. It is the sudden care with which a phone is placed face down on a table. No story can survive forever under that weight. And yes, people tried to help. Friends who invited them to dinner. Colleagues who offered neutral ground, a safe space to talk. Families who wanted the best, who said love is work and work sometimes looks like forgiveness. None of them were wrong. None of them failed. It's just that some endings arrive like winter. You can prepare and still be surprised when the cold settles into the walls. That night, everyone watching knew a door was closing, not because anyone said it, but because you could feel the room exhale. The table settings, the flicker of candles, the untouched dessert that looked almost ridiculous sitting there like a promise of sweetness that nobody could taste. In the days after, the city did what it always does, it pretended to move on. But those who follow Baris and Elsen felt the shift. Threads on social media turned into rivers of speculation. Some said reconciliation is still possible, that love this strong does not collapse in a single scene. Others argued that endings like this are final because they are clean, they leave no room for doubt to sprout again. The photograph of the ring kept circulating. Fans zoomed in, looking for clues in the grain of the wood, as if the surface might reveal a secret. Maybe we do that because we are desperate to understand when something beautiful breaks. Maybe we think meaning lies in the details. Maybe sometimes the meaning is exactly what it looks like, a ring placed on a table without a hand to claim it. What remains is the human part, and that is the piece that hurts. Elsen, rediscovering what mornings feel like without a schedule built for two. The taste of coffee in a quiet kitchen. The phone lighting up with messages that say take your time, we are here, you are loved. Baris, pacing a room, staring out of a window that has no answers to offer, a man who knows he can't rewind. Two people learning how to be individuals again after being plural for so long. It's not a tragedy. It's a hard truth, and there can be beauty in that. Because healing does not ask for permission. It simply arrives, slowly at first, then all at once on a day when laughter comes without effort and the air feels lighter than it did the day before. If you listen closely, you can hear what this story is really telling anyone who needs to hear it. If love is real, it is brave enough to face daylight. If it cannot stand in the open, it is not love, it is longing, fear, habit, a mirage built out of wishful thinking. When Elsen shared her words, she wasn't lashing out. She was choosing her life. When Baris shared his image, he wasn't asking for pity. He was naming the cost. We don't have to pick sides to understand the lesson. Sometimes the end is the only honest form of love left on the table. By the time the sun rose fully, traffic swallowed the city's edges and the world went on, the way it always does. Somewhere in that morning, a woman pulled her coat tighter and walked toward a door that opened into the next chapter. Somewhere else, a man stood in a quiet room and let stillness do its work. And in the middle of it all, fans who had believed with all their hearts lit candles, wrote messages, and wished for gentleness on the people they'd rooted for, the same kindness they would want for themselves. The fallen ring marked the end of one promise, yes. But it also marked the reclaiming of breath, of freedom, of the right to demand what is true and to walk away from what is not. Thank you for being here with me and for caring about more than headlines. This has been Turkish series Stars. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves, and until then, be kind to your heart and brave with your choices.